What's up guys, today we're gonna do a tutorial on the data descriptor and accessor descriptor of the JavaScript. Let's start it with an example. Let's say a var people is equal to function this time we will not gonna define the variable, we're gonna leave it like this only. We're gonna define it later on. Now we're gonna use the data descriptor over here, object dot define property, it takes 3 parameters. First is the object in which we're gonna define a property. Second is the property which we want to define. Over here you should write first name, last name. Over here we're gonna define a first name property, and the third parameter is the descriptor. Over here we're gonna write the value descriptor. We're gonna write the value of the first name as first name, and writable. Writable, it means that we can overwrite this property or not. By default it's false. Then okay, now we're gonna call to the wait a second, I've written the same name for both the objects. People, person, let it be person. Over here also person. We're gonna call the person object var person is equal to people John Doe. Now we're gonna run this code and we're gonna call person dot first name looks like we have missed something over here. We have to return the person object. Now it will run. Oops, spelling mistake. We'll run it. Now we're gonna call the person dot first name. It will say John, and now if we assign it over here, let's change the name to let us say Jane. It says Jane. Now if we're gonna call this method, but it says Johnny because we have written over here false to writable. If we change it to true, then we're gonna run the same code Jane, and we're gonna run the same code. Oh sorry, we haven't actually run the code. Now we're gonna run it. Person dot first name Jane. Now it has changed. See, we're gonna do the same thing for the last name. I'm just gonna do copy paste. Checked. Write it to last name. Over here also. Now we're gonna run the code again. Now we're gonna call the last name person dot last name. It's Doe. It's running correctly, but I don't like the way we have written define property twice. We are using object oriented, and using the code again and again is a sin for us now. So there's another method, object dot define properties. It takes two parameters. First is the object, and second is the properties actually that we're gonna change, like value, first name, writable, true. Well, I think we have missed something. It's this thing, and over here we need to write the name of the property. First name, and similarly for the last name. Value, first name, writable to true, and I'm gonna comment this thing. Now we're gonna run the code, and if we'll write person dot last name, oh sorry, yeah, where we have written last. Now we're gonna run the code and call it. It will say Doe, so it's working fine. Now we have talked about the data descriptor. Now we're gonna talk about the access descriptor actually. So we're gonna write full name, and over here we're gonna write value is equal to this dot first name, actually not value get. Access contains getter and setter methods. So over here we're gonna use only get. Later on we're gonna use the set also. This plus this last name. There was a mistake. Actually getter is a method, so we're gonna write function and then return now we're gonna run the code and call it person full name, it said John Doe. There's another option called configurable. If that option, by default it's false, so we cannot redefine the property. Like let it be configurable. By default it's false, so let it be false first. So now if we gonna redefine a property by saying that object dot define property person full name, now we will use the get accessor function return this dot first name. Actually let's change it to last name. This dot last name. So now if we'll run the code and there's an error. Okay, wait a second. Now if we run the code, there's an error. Yeah, say it says that cannot redefine the property. Actually we have redefined the property over here. It is because we have set the configurable to false. Now what if we'll say it to true? Now we'll run the code. No errors, I guess. Yes. Now we'll run it. Person dot full name, it says Dodo. Oh, actually I have written last name twice. First name. Now run the code. Now it says Doe John. So this is how we use the configurable property.